Hi, this is Celeste with the Celestial Report, and it's a new week this morning, and we've got minus 60 degrees here in North Dakota, and I've got my dear friend Dan Happel from Connecting the Dots. I was just on his program last night. How cold is it over in your neck of the woods, Dan?
Actually, it's not bad. It's about 22 or 23 degrees right now.
I guess we were the lucky winners.
Yeah, you were definitely.
So, okay, well, I think today we're just going to go down the rabbit hole. Um, and so, what is on your radar that you're watching really intently that we can jump in with both feet?
Okay, well, first of all, I think an awful lot of people are really tickled that Donald Trump got elected president, and they're thinking, well, now maybe we can kind of relax a little bit and everything's going to be fine. And I'm here to tell people, and believe me, I'm supporting Donald Trump, and I'm really hopeful that everything works out the way that we've been heard and all the pre-election stuff. But I also know the reality is that Donald Trump, on his first time around, he was kneecapped and beat up, and everything that he did was really hobbled by the deep state people. And now I think we're looking at a new Donald Trump that I think is probably a little wiser as a result of being sued and shot at and almost killed, and virtually everything you can think of has happened to this man. But at the same time, it's up to the American people to be the ones that really keep this president honest about what he's doing, and also to stand behind him and help him to get a lot of things done. Because if the American people don't do it, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think what we don't realize is we would love to hand over our responsibility to be the watchmen and watchwomen to somebody else. Well, I'm busy with my life. Let somebody else take care of it. But I think the lesson of history over the last 50, 100 years is we really cannot afford to hand over the reins. It takes, like you, Dan, look at things a little bit differently than I look at things. And it takes all of us to keep our eyes wide open and to sound the alarm if we start to see like an inch of little trouble here or there.
Yeah, we do, and it's our government was never designed to be just kind of self-running, because keep in mind that the founding fathers, they had very limited government. Now, the only reason that we've got a gigantic octopus of government like we do right now, a leviathan per se, is because we've allowed them to take more and more power because we became less and less attentive. And, it's time for the American people to realize there's only one way to go. We either backtrack by being involved in doing what we're supposed to do as citizens, or we're going to lose what little freedom we have, and it'll be, not only will it be a leviathan, but it'll be a one world leviathan, because what they're trying to do is really consolidate all world governments into a one world system, and that one world system is totalitarian all the way.
And you know what I think that words have changed their definitions, and somehow we all treasure and value privacy, and so we extended that grace to the government. Well, you can be private, you can do these meetings behind closed doors, we can have whole secret agencies with black budgets that we don't know. But I think it stemmed from a good place from us. We were extending this grace to our government, but unfortunately, when the government serves the people, it's secrecy in the government is different than privacy, and we cannot those are not interchangeable words.
Right.
Privacy is constitutional inalienable rights, and secrecy is like I'm in the dark corner hiding there, doing whatever I want, however I want, and it costs whatever, we want to charge the American people. And just think, would any of us take out our checkbook? I'm asking all of you out there in the chat, would you take your checkbook? I know that's kind of a dated idea, but if you have a checkbook, would you hand over to your government your checkbook to write whatever checks that they feel and fund whatever things that they feel are important? I know I certainly wouldn't.
No, and that's kind of the point of all this is that our founding fathers realized that if you give government power, that the natural tendency of government is to take more and more power because growth is the only thing that feeds government. If you keep government stationary, completely stationary, and very limited in its power, it doesn't really provide an opportunity for, I guess, government to create the kind of environment that it wants, which always leads to more and more control. So we just need to get back on track. That's just that simple. And we got a long way to go. And the fact that our government is so incredibly huge, it took us 150 years to go down this path. And frankly, I don't see it going the other way in anything less than, I don't know, probably at least 75 years, at least half that time, even if we're working at it really, really hard.
So, as most of my audience knows, um, for the last, I don't know, maybe 4 months or so, I've been training my golden retriever, Mississippi, and she's a good dog, and I've traveled all over the United States with her. She loves everybody, and I've had her in skyscrapers at the Hilton in Washington D.C. and all around the United States, and she's been very good. But she was a dog that, as she gets older, she's asserting her power, and she wants to do it her way. And so, Mom said, "I think it's a little time for some dog obedience." And as I'm taking these lessons, I'm thinking, wow, our interaction with the government is a lot like dog training. We have to keep that firm handle on it. We can't let anything escape our glance because, as they say, the old adage goes, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I'm really getting it. So as I'm watching, just before we came on, I was watching 2 of the dog training lessons, and I'm just chuckling because it talks about having a short leash, and a long leash, and I unfortunately, in America, I think, um, we've given them a long leash with no correction whatsoever. They just could do whatever they so desired, and it didn't matter how much pain the American people went through. Um, that was the way that it was going to be done.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I hate to say it, but I think 9/11 was the
Yes.
point where we let them off the leash. You know,
Yes.
we let them off the leash. They're running wild, and not only are we going to have to put them on a short leash, but it's going to have to be a collar that's a choker chain, so that we can really give them a good jerk and start training them to heal, as it were, because that's where you train a dog how to heal is by putting them on a short leash with a choker chain on it.
And we don't want to make the same mistake. Yes, we have a new administration, but we want to keep them in check and we need to keep an eye on them just to ensure that they are following through with what we say. And going one step further, is there an agenda behind the agenda? Which, we've seen that over many decades, that what is said out in the public, behind closed doors, actually, there's a whole different agenda going on.
Yeah, in fact, it's never been any different, Celeste. And I guess that what makes me is pessimistic as I am. But let's kind of go down that rabbit hole because you know some of the appointments that President Trump has put on, and I'm thinking of Elon Musk, is somebody who, even though I really want to think he's a great guy and I want to believe all this stuff, at the same time he's been one of the biggest promoters of artificial intelligence, of you know human, or I would call it computer human interfaces through different chip insertions and things like that into the human brain. His family, his grandfather was the head of the technocracy movement in Canada back in the 30s and 40s, and that's you know the same movement that created a lot of the controlled society that under Hitler became the Third Reich. So, you know, there's a lot of things here that we've got to be really watchful of. And even though I know the American people want nothing but as much liberty and as much freedom as we can possibly do, we've got to be very jealous of that and really keep a close, I guess I would say, a close observation of the Trump administration and people like Elon Musk.
Well, can I share a FEMA story?
Sure, please
So
do.
as we were getting close to Y2K, it was a Friday afternoon. I've got to say, it was Friday afternoon. It was rainy. It was the end of the week. I just wanted to get home. But we had somebody come from Microsoft to start making our computers interoperable. And most people think that Y2K was a dismal failure. It wasn't the end of civilization, or was it?
Hmm.
Um, because what happened is then all of the computers, so let's say emergency management or FEMA computers would talk to FEMA computers, and the White House computers would talk with White House. Telephone company would talk with White or telephone company computers, but they didn't talk amongst themselves, and certainly not sensors like, let's say, a pacemaker or a diabetes sugar monitor. All these sensors and synthetic biology has that transmitter and receiver. So we all have this technology in our body, unless we extricate it. So I digress. So it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Of course, going home time was about 5. And this man from technician from um, Microsoft came, and I still, to this day, I do not know how he did it because I was half, already thinking, what am I going to have for dinner? What am I doing for the weekend? But he touched like certain places on the desktop, and it opened literally portals. You literally, when he touched it, he knew right the combination. I have no idea how he did it because I wasn't paying that much attention. All I know is that there were these huge worlds or portals, and it's almost like time traveling, the science fiction things that you see where you're going down the portal, and they opened up. And he did it several places on the thing. We do not even know these things exist on
Yeah.
our computer. But given somebody with Elon Musk's intelligence, they know about these things, probably help construct some of these things. And this is a world like, would you or I even know how to recognize it? I mean, when I saw the portal open up, yes, I recognized it. And it it took me back. I was like, "Oh my gosh." I had a healthy respect for this afterwards. So, how does one even keep in check or whatever, um, somebody like Elon Musk with such a brilliant intelligence that is far above us, like, in the technology area? How do we do it? And the danger is, will we let the fox guard the hen house,
Right.
you know? But we don't have the skills. I'm also really concerned, and I have been concerned because our federal government, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago, they started to turn over our government policy to young people. You are talking junior high and high school level people, children, were making our government policy. Of course, they were led by the nose, you know.
Mhm.
But there, I ran across it in one of my Homeland Security journals, and then did a follow up story on it. But now they're really emphasizing part of the Doge are these young people,
Mhm.
brilliant young people. So how do we and are these young people, do they have the same value system that we do? What could they insert into a computer possibly? It's a dangerous time.
Mhm. Well, and Celeste, think about that. That was 25 years ago when you ran into that situation.
Yep.
And look at how computers and how AI and all these different technologies have. I mean, it's been an exponential growth. It hasn't been a regulated growth. It's been exponential. And what you're talking about with these young people, are we absolutely sure they're 100% human? Are we
Yeah.
absolutely sure that they aren't part of the AI revolution that they've been working on? Because keep in mind, the technology is always at least 50 years beyond what the normal person understands. You know, it's way beyond our comprehension what's going on.
Yeah, 2 years ago, 2 summers ago, I was asked to be a keynote speaker. And so a young, we were under the tent outside, and I think I had just spoken, and then I was mingling with people afterwards during the break. And I kind of was looking down, and a young man stretched out his hand. It was a veteran, and I brought my eyes up to meet his eyes because I'm very much a person that believes the eyes are the windows to the
Right,
soul.
right.
And I looked, and he was reptilian. He had the slit eyes, and I had seen pictures. Of course, I've heard descriptions, but it is totally different. And this was a young man, maybe 22 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of like was a kind of one of those wake up moments for Celeste that even though I had heard about this, you put it on the back burner until you actually experience it yourself. And then you go, okay, what world are they?
Mm-hmm.
What is the genetics? Why does this person have slit eyes? I mean, but you can't jump to conclusions because these days they've got young people are young people and they have those contact lenses that can make you look slit eyes. You know, you can't just automatically run away and say they were reptilian. Uh, but you really have to even know that that's a possibility.
Yeah, anything is a possibility right now. You know, that's the unlimited aspect of technology is that right now, what we comprehend and what is reality in the technological world is so beyond anything we can comprehend. And of course, we're looking at people like Elon Musk, as you said. The man is absolutely brilliant, and his family has been involved in the technocracy movement for 80, 90 years. Who knows how far down the rabbit hole that is? And I know we want to trust him as, you know, someone who is doing always trying to do the right thing. I think he's a good guy. I really do. But at the same time, we need to be aware that, you know, the only way we're going to reel any of this stuff in is to not trust so much and start being a lot more observant and a lot more involved in all these programs so that we can see what they're doing and not just assume what they're doing.
So what is your take on the border situation? It's almost almost a month since the inauguration, and it's quite the I mean, I've seen some hair-raising, um, stuff that's going on down at the border, and then all of a sudden, the minute that there was the inauguration, all of a sudden you saw YouTubes of what was actually going down at the border. I mean, you heard quiet whispers, that type of thing of what was happening, the smuggling of human trafficking, drugs, weapons, that type of thing, but it was kept very off the radar of the most. You couldn't go to YouTube. There was nothing there.
Mhm.
If it was a 30-second spot. They didn't want to highlight what was actually happening. So what is your take with what's going on in the border? And do you think they're doing it the right way? Are you seeing that this could actually be an exercise for something else down the road?
Actually, I'm very hopeful about the border thing. And as Celeste, as you know, we had a house down south of Tucson, and 2 years ago, actually 3 years ago this summer, we had to sell it. And the reason we did was because under the open border policy, it was unbelievable the amount of traffic that was coming across there, be it gangs, be it uh, human trafficking, be it the smuggling of drugs and all that. And it was really, really getting wide open. In Tucson, which was the close big city, we were just south of Tucson, went from being one of the safest cities in the country to being one of the most dangerous ones in a matter of 2 or 3 years. And I mean, I'm no chicken, but I can tell you, it didn't make any sense to stay down there if it was going to continue that way. And at that point, there was no way of knowing whether Trump would get back in or not. But that being said, the gangs have really taken over. The cartels have really taken over the border area, and it is so much more extensive than most people realize. The Mexican army is controlled by the cartels. The government is controlled by the cartels. And then I don't know if people want to believe this or not, but frankly, the biggest drug dealer in the world is the CIA. They get so much of their black ops money through drug trading, and that's been going that way since Vietnam. Air America and all the drug traffic that's going on in what they call the Iron Triangle. That was all initiated through the CIA, or at least expanded through the CIA. And now, we've got all this stuff coming in from China. We've, what a mess. So, do I think it's got a long way to go to improve? Absolutely. Do I think they're actually doing something about it? I believe so. I know that Trump is moving National Guard people down there. And I think it's gone beyond that. From my understanding, they've actually moved Army Special Forces and even Navy SEALs down into that area with the idea they're going to create a major interdiction to stop the flow of drugs and weapons and everything else that's coming in through the border. So, do I see it as being a positive? I think so, but there's a long way to go, and a lot has happened in the last 4 years.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we hear about the tunnels in Israel and IEDs and just different lobbing missiles and that type of stuff. And now that's actually come to our southern border. And I watched this one video. Was it yesterday or the day before? It was maybe 15 minutes, and it showed all the creative ways. Do you remember when you were in high school? I don't know if you did this in high school, but we had a VW bus for one of our high school rallies, and we saw how many people we could fit in the VW bus. I think we fit 20 people in. But the creativity of these cartels to
Hmm?
human traffic. I mean, there were lumber trucks, heavy equipment trucks, Lowe's trucks. I'm not speaking and no brand particularly, it's just it had the logo on it, in the cabins of trucks, in minivans, in sports cars,
Mhm.
and I mean, it just was like rabbits. They came out, and the police or whoever ICE stops them, and then they all just like go taking off. Like it was. I mean, I was just shocked that you could even fit that many people in to a vehicle.
Yeah, well, and you know what you're talking about. It kind of reminds you of the old clown cars when you go to the circus. It'd be like 15 clowns would pack into a V Dub, and they'd jump out, and it really is amazing what humans can come up with for creativity. But we've got to do that in a positive way for a change, because the negative side of that's been pretty much running amok for a very long time. It's really time for those of us who care about this country and about humanity to start being a lot more involved.
So what I'm curious about, of course, that wasn't going to happen during Biden, but maybe during President Trump's administration. So David lived up in the Yak. Do you know where the Yak is?
Oh yeah.
Western. Yeah. So we actually had a place like, oh, maybe 30 miles from the border, but this is before David and I married. And he had just moved up to the Yak, and he took a drive, and then he parked his pickup, and he did a little deer trail. He walked down the deer trail, and he just praised God. He was on a rock overlooking like a river or something like that. And he left his weapon and everything in the car, and he comes back, and Border Patrol is there. And they said, "Okay, why were you in Canada? What were you doing?" I guess it was David didn't know this, but it was a well-known drug trafficking route. Of
Oh,
course, David didn't know it. That how did they even know? Because they have the electronic fence. So it was a laser, and David had tripped it. Of course, he didn't see it, and he just tripped it. And then they were there waiting when David got back.
mm,
And so I hope, because you just see, even with the fence, they're just like climbing over it, even with um, the concertina wire at the top and everything. They're still managing to get in. But if we did an electronic fence on top of the other, it could reduce maybe the amount of manpower that we have down there. And plus, we've got eye in the sky and drones, and that they've got FLIR technology and stuff that they use like during Waco. I mean, this stuff is very perfected right now. They should be using it at the border to stop these people.
well, they can, and one of my friends is a retired Army colonel. His name is Chuck Floyd, and Chuck's going to be a guest on a program coming up next month. But he's actually the architect of the border security plan that was in play under George W. Bush, and he worked with the State Department to actually improve the security around all the different consuls around the world where the United States had consulates everywhere. And so he was part of that, and he got involved with the Trump administration on the first go around. And he's the one that actually designed much of what went into the border security plan. When Biden got into the White House, they just took all those border security things down. They just eliminated. They have the ability to hear underground, uh, sounds from people digging. They have so many abilities with the drones and everything else. If they want to shut down the border, they can do it. They
And they can
really
do
have.
it short order.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we just have to put our mind to it. But this is a war. This is an invasion, and we do have to look at it as a war and an invasion. Of course, the other side of the aisle believes that it is humanitarian and, they buy the UN thing that we're supposed to let countries be overrun. I had a German doctor on last week, and he was talking about, I mean, we've talked over like about once every 6 months about what it's like in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
and the illegal migration is destroying Germany. And
Well, Celeste, that's the idea. This
yeah,
is globalism, and it's an actual plan, and that is you allow just unlimited illegal immigration, where you're bringing in all these different cultures and races and everything else. It's the greatest way that you can possibly destroy a very, I guess, what I would call cohesive society. If you take a group of all these different strangers and bring them into an area, and then overtax the welfare system, the hospitals, the schools, everything else, this is a classic Cloward and Piven, and that's exactly what all these different programs are about. It's about destroying the system as it is, so that you can create a system that's just totally beyond anything most people even want to comprehend. And that one world system is exactly what they're trying to create. And all I can say is that, you talk about the loony left or the Democrats wanting to be part of this. I've had so many of these people say to me, well, it's just heartless to stop all these people and to make it where good people can't come in. Well, that's why we have legal immigration, is so good people can come in. Illegal means exactly what it says. It's illegal, and it's also uncontrolled, and that's exactly what they want, is uncontrolled, so that we can't select who comes in.
yeah, and it's all around the world, so we're not the only ones. I remember in the 90s, and Ahmed and I talked about that I was in some park in Germany, and there was like a neo-Nazi gathering there. It was kind of, shocking for me, an American over there in Germany, to see that. Um, but it and that was nothing to where what it is now. It's just like everywhere. It doesn't matter what country.
Hmm.
The third world countries are emptying out. What do you think about this offer? Is it Venezuela or is it Guatemala? But I think it's Venezuela that has offered their supermax prison to house American um, people that are in prison in America, Americans down in these third world countries.
We've been doing that ever since 9/11. That was one of the things that we opened up with 9/11. You can take anyone, whether they be an American citizen or anyone else, and all you have to do is call them, label them as a terrorist, and you can ship them anywhere in the world, and they can be subject to imprisonment, where, frankly, they can do things like waterboarding and some of the most horrible things in the world. They get away with it because of the Patriot Act. I mean, people don't realize, what a absolute scam and inside job 9/11 was. It was, the bringing down of the Twin Towers and Building 7 was only a small part of it. The other part of that was destroying our Constitution by bringing in the most destructive program in the world, which was the so-called Patriot Act, and creating a scenario where we could literally become the policemen of the world, go anywhere, unlimited access to becoming militarized troops, and bringing our troops into any country in the world. We really screwed up by allowing 9/11 to go unexposed like we did. But then, hey, they've been doing that for a long time. They've been doing that forever,
Well,
really.
they did it with Vietnam and,
Mhm,
like you said, and even going back to the bomb, the nuclear bomb testing in,
mhm,
like, Bikini Island and stuff, and, oh, no, radiation doesn't hurt people, and even my mom lived in Susanville, California, which is just about 90 miles, 100 miles north of Reno, but it's in California, and there was a testing range for nuclear, and she had a beautiful garden, and of course, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree,
mhm,
so I picked up my gardening love for gardening from my mom, but she would, because they were doing nuclear testing, oftentimes her stuff would get mutated, and it was her experience that when I started in Montana to see various mutations, I could distinguish between what was radiation from what we were getting from Fukushima, what is herbicide damage. So I was able to do that. But, all of us were pretty much told, oh, there's nothing to see here, just move along.
Well, we had that in southwest Montana. People don't realize, but it was disclosed that they were doing nuclear radiation testing on southwest Montana, and it was coming from the Dugway Proving Ground in Utah.
Mhm,
And they were actually taking radiation and exposing, dropping it through the atmosphere, dropping radiation out of planes to see what the impact would be. And Southwest Montana has a very, very high incidence of cancer, one of the highest in the country. And I'm sure that's as a result of, all that testing.
Well, you also have, remember when oops, I don't, oh, that was, well, I can't answer the door. Um, that's the UPS guy.
Mm,
So hopefully my sister will get it. Um, so you also have the Rocky Mountain Bioweapon Lab down in Hamilton, Montana. And
mm,
that's where I got all that juicy stuff when I went public after I announced about the World Economic Forum and COVID. Um, they put it proudly about the humanized mice, the monoclonal antibodies, what they were doing with the COVID vaccinations, and it was that's where I got my material. Now, I mean, it's all gone classified. Unfortunately, all of these labs went dark after people started to get active and share information about what was going on here in America as far as bioweapon labs.
mhm,
And now you can't, like that new one in Manhattan, Kansas, the new Plum Island, although Plum Island is still active, this other one in Manhattan, Kansas is completely classified. I think since it opened, what, 3 years ago, um, I think I've gotten two things. When I went into a partnership with Scorpion Bio to make 144,000 liters of anti-anthrax. Now, we hadn't heard about anthrax for a long time. So why was this premier splash their very first announcement? And that's the first project that they did. And then a company, Scorpion Bio, that sounds so like creepy. I'm sorry. It just does. And it has an insectary to weaponize bugs, both for the food supply and also to destroy various crops.
mhm,
Um, and but it's all classified. You can't get anything. I saw one thing I maybe 4 months ago. I can't remember what the other article was about it, but it's all of them have just clammed up.
mhm.
So
Well, and look at the technology that's going on right now, Celeste, with nanotechnology. I read a wonderful book, and this has been 30 years ago. Michael Crichton wrote a book called Prey,
Yes.
And I don't know if you've ever read that book, but it's a fascinating book. And it talks about self assembling swarms of nanotech that can create just about anything they want. Now, Michael Crichton was a genius. He was a medical doctor. He had a medical degree, but he also had a couple of different PhDs in other areas. And he was a genius, no doubt about it. But all the books that he wrote, things like Jurassic Park and this book Prey, were about the capabilities of the technology that was happening in the world. And it's a fascinating read because he did a lot of really cool things. I think his last book, and it was just before he died. He died very young, and I'm not sure about the circumstances of his death, but he wrote a book about how the radical green movement was going to start um, fracturing the Antarctic ice and do it in a way that got everybody involved in environmentalism scared to death that that the whole world was going to fall apart as a result of man's impact on the environment, but do it in a very clandestine way. And lo and behold, I think it was only about maybe, I'm going to say less than a year after that book came out that he died. And I think he was clairvoyant. I really do. I think he knew the technology and understood it well enough to know that all these things were not only possible, they were probable in the wrong hands.
Well, don't forget, I'm sure that he wrote the book about the time that the NASA Strategic Warfare 2025 came out, and it talks about the self assembling nanobots and the swarms and the different types of nanotechnology and different technologies, beam technology, all sorts of technology, harvesting technology, synthetic biology, talked about artificial intelligence. And what many people don't know about that document is that it is a living document. So you save it. So I've got various iterations of it saved. And depending on when it's whatever goes operational, it changes. So it has like 30 slides that are always the same. And then it will, as something is pre-operational, it will, to float the bubble, to put it in media terms,
Hmm.
they will put certain stuff in, and then as soon as it's operational, that those disappear and something else appears. This year, there is just a like a special edition NASA Strategic Warfare 2025 for just this year because this was the year. It is called the then year. And I'm sure that that's what Michael Crichton, that he probably had access because this was not a classified document and it got around. So I'm sure he probably used it for parts of his book Prey.
Hmm. Yeah, well, and keep in mind that book was written almost 30 years ago.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
that tells you how far the technology was advanced. And it was written as a novel, as almost all of Michael Crichton's work was. But he wrote those as novels so that people would have an idea. They would be able to peer behind the curtain and see what was going on in military, in DARPA, and different military technologies that were being advanced.
And you also had a better chance at not getting killed if you put it in a novel form. If you do exposés, if you do webinars, if you do public speaking, as you well know, they don't really like that very much. So I think novels are a good way, especially for the public these days. I interview a few authors that are really fun to have on. One uses humor, another one just does these marvelous historical works. but it's all in novel form.
Mhm.
And but he can get l- a lot of information without taking the hits that maybe some people on the front line take.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing because I'm thinking of writing a novel. Um, I can write a very technical book and document, because there's so much information out there. I've got, I don't know how many books, but it's well over 1,000. And that there's so much information out there that I can document. But like you say, sometimes it's a little easier if we can do it in a way that people want to pick it up and read it for entertainment. If it's got enough solid information in it, then people will read it for entertainment. But that little kernel of knowledge and that little shadow of doubt goes into their mind, and it's an effective way to move forward in maybe educating people.
Yeah, you might want to interview um, Brian Godawa.
Oh,
He's really fascinating and very dynamic. Does wonderful work. So
mhm.
he might make a good guess for you.
I'll get in touch with you after the program, and we'll do that.
Yeah.
I'd love to do that, and it would be a good way for me to learn too how to do that because I'm not a bad writer. But I've thought about that and I've labored about it because I also don't want to make myself a target of the CIA and some of these other groups. I probably already am because of my outspokenness, but at the same time, uh, you know, I I know how people are, and if I could put together a novel and then put it on audio book so that people could listen to it. A lot of people don't even want to read anymore. Maybe we could get them to listen to it. But think about some of the great movies that have come out that have actually exposed the man behind the curtain. I think of the Matrix movie series. I mean, a lot of people thought that was really far fetched. I don't think it's far fetched at all.
So I think I did it last week or the week before. I talked about that when I saw the Hunger Games where it had the clock,
Mhm.
and every hour there was a new disaster. When I saw that, this chill went through me that they were going to use this as a template. And this year they are using it for a template because if you notice, there's the fires, then
Mhm.
there were planes crashing in and falling from the sky. Now I'm getting a bunch of alerts from the government on industrial accidents. So we might be seeing a number of industrial accidents. But that's what I think this whole year is going to be, is like every month or every few weeks. And what that does is it throws people off. It's hard to plan. It keeps them always on guard. It keeps them fearful because it's happening so fast. They don't know what the next one is because they're most people are not getting government alerts, and so they don't.
Mhm.
The government, like I knew 2 years before 9/11 that 9/11 was going to happen. Not the details, all of them, but as it drew closer,
Mhm.
there were certain things that changed in the agencies and um, just the compartmentalization, the security. I mean, before that, our EOC, the biggest event we had like 2 years or 3 years before, we were prepping for Y2K and also 9/11 was like a Seattle news person got in the back door into the EOC
Mhm.
during an activation. That was the most, but after, the closer we got to 9/11, everything was security minded. You couldn't get in it. And I went to go see my old alma mater when I went on a speaking tour, and they even rerouted roads. There's three towers that you have to go through. There's wire. I mean, it looks like an armed fortress. And you used to just be able to walk up there. It was like a college campus,
Hmm.
and where I would take my classes and get schooled on this thing or that thing, the other thing. So yeah, yeah, I think it would be good that you did would do a um, a book, a novel,
Hmm.
and but I don't think it's probably going to keep you off the list. Like you said, they really know who we are with artificial intelligence now. And we tried to do that experiment last night on your show where I pressed that button on the generated world and we couldn't get it to go. Or they've taken that function out because Celeste became vocal on it right away and they didn't want people to see that functionality of it yet. I'm not sure.
Well, we're treading on really, really unstable ground right now, and like you say, they've learned how to use fear. They mine fear to keep people off guard, and at the same time to keep everybody under control. Where the next event just kind of keeps that fear generating and going. And we talked about this before between us, but the way that Christians and people are supposed to be is not fearful, and are with passion and love and understanding and gratitude and all these positive things in our heart and in our soul. And the way they can disturb us and take away our connection with God, I think, is by creating so much fear that people forget what our real purpose is.
Well, sometimes I think that we give up our joy too easily. You know, we we give it out and then it's taken away from us. It's captured, if you will, and then that sets us up for fear. If we have the joy and the peace of the Lord, any it's like water on a duck's back. We just,
Hmm. Hmm.
brush it off. Well, how about if we see if the audience and the viewers have any questions for you?
Okay.
So if any of you have questions for Dan Happel, put a question mark, and I'm going to go down to the bottom and ask your question. You can ask it of Dan or myself, but Dan is our our guest. So if anybody has any questions, Dan is a wealth of information. Are you still doing the red pill?
We are, but we kind of the last one because of the election. The ticket sales were not very good, and I think a lot of people were afraid because it was right after the election, and a lot of people were afraid there was going to be a lot of stuff going on. So I haven't heard of the new time yet, but I think they're planning on doing another event this summer, and I'll be involved in trying to help with that event.
Well, that sounds good. So Juby Joe asks, are there going to be some manufactured food shortages?
Well, I think manufactured food is a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, there probably will be, but most people. I'm hoping that most people are a little bit better prepared. But manufactured food, frankly, I think shortages would be a good thing. Uh, Celeste, you and I talked about that yesterday. Our food supply is so screwed up now from genetic modification, from different technologies being involved in the actual production of the food. It doesn't even taste like food anymore.
No, no.
And so, be very careful. If I know it's a little bit early to be talking about this, but think about putting in a garden, thinking about doing, if you've got the ability, buy uh, grass-fed beef and things that are not as pumped full of additives as the processed foods are.
Okay, we have a question from SB. How much time do you think we have left to remain fully human?
Ooh, uh, that's a good question, but I think we've got a lot of time left to remain fully human if we just get connect with our creator and refuse all these different vaccines and all the things that they're trying to do to us. Fully human, I'm not sure how much we've already been affected by biotechnology and so forth, but I think we can certainly fight it if we're connected with our Lord and if we're refusing to allow anything to take our soul. I guess that's as best I can answer that.
So, have you ever heard of Dan Duvall?
I've heard, uh huh, yeah.
Okay, so Dan Duvall has a book, Prayers That Shake Heaven and Earth, and he has a technology prayer, and it is amazing. You can actually extricate this technology from your body. You have to pray in faith,
Mhm.
and it is a powerful prayer. It goes through a number of different, very technical terms. Dan Duvall used to engineer synthetic biology, and then he did the prayers to counter it. And
Wow.
so, while some people say I might not, because I don't understand the words, I just not very comfortable with it. Some people don't like liturgical type prayers, but if you do deliverance at all, there but behind these nanobots and different things are forces. As a matter of fact, in the book of Daniel, it talks about the God of forces. So these are entities or forces or demons behind the different particles, and what we've got going is particle warfare. So if you don't specifically name that demon, let's say Matrix, then that demon can go hide under another bush and not exit your body. So it's better to say the complete prayer. If you want to customize it, there's no reason that you can't customize it for yourself. Add a little bit on the front, add a little bit on the end, customize it for your own personal lifestyle. But to really address the demons and the forces behind this technology, it's really good to, even though you don't may not understand the technology of those words. I think I need to do a show on the technology of those words. That way everybody would understand. I think I need to put that on my calendar. So
Yeah.
in my spare time. Okay, let's see. City Girl Countrified is asking, will we have to live nomadic to survive?
Yeah, I hope not. But a lot of what, and I'm going to say this, a lot of what we're going through is because we haven't been involved. Uh, we've got to get brave. We've got to be involved. Country girl, do the best thing you can, and the best way you could affect your future is to go to local government, get involved with local government, get involved with school boards. If everybody in this country got involved the way we should be, I don't think a lot of these things have to happen. We need to get behind the curtain, and we need to pull the curtain back. And we cannot do that. It's like the old saying: you can't win the game if you're not on the field. And that's exactly where we're at right now. There's an awful lot of Americans that have not gotten on the field, and we need to do that. I mean, I was a county commissioner. I right now I'm working with the Montana legislature on different bills to try to promote different bills. Um, I'm 75 years old. I'm still on a couple of different boards. I'm on the UPMA board. I'm on the Madison County Fire Board. I get involved in all these different things, even though they're kind of a tax on your time. You need to be involved, because if you're not there fighting the fight, then somebody else is fighting that fight, and usually it's the guys on the other side.
Yeah,
So
they're the ones that you don't want on there.
exactly, we've got to get off our derriere and be part of the solution, and that's the best way to do it. Just if there were, let's just say, we've got 350 30 some million people in the United States. If 100 million of those people were involved the way we're talking, roughly a third, if a third of the people were doing that, we wouldn't have the problems we've got today. And that's the key to the whole thing. Just do it. It may be a pain in the butt. It may be all kinds of require a lot of extra time, but you've got to do it.
Well, and I think we need to educate young people, um, and not from a Marxism perspective.
Right.
So we want them involved, but not from a Marxism standpoint. Okay, C Smiles asked if you know about the Sanhedrin letter to Trump on Valentine's Day, February 14th.
I heard about it, but I haven't seen anything about it. But I did hear about it. Yes, in fact, I'd like to learn more about it.
That would be good. I need to look into that one, which I will do.
Hmm. I
Let's
will.
see. Nefarious 68 as asking, have you heard about I'm sorry, Nefarious 68. If we talk about that question, this is live on this platform. And to answer your question would be not according to community standards. So unfortunately, you would have to take that up with YouTube, but I can't ask our guests today. If you want to email Dan or myself, you can email me and I can forward it to Dan. It's Celeste at celestialreport.com. You just have to be careful and respectful of the platform that we're on.
Mhm.
Okay, Elizabeth De Silva, why aren't we doing a community and share our life in Jesus down here? 2 or 3 families together here in Quebec. I find no one, but it seems in the US there are more Christians. No? Mm. Mose, what's your take on that, Dan?
Well, I'm not sure, but I know you certainly got a socialist country up there, and most people don't. Most people don't realize that Karl Marx was a Satanist. When they start talking Marxism, they always omit the fact that he was a devout Satanist. He even actually wrote a play to Satan when he was like 19, 20 years old. And most of his books, of the hundred some, right at 100, a little over 100 books that he wrote, and major publications that he wrote. Actually, they only advertise and only show about 10 of them. And there's a reason for that, because a lot of the stuff he did was satanic. So, best thing you could do is find all the Christians in your area, and do your very best to build a community of Christians where you live, and then support each other. That's the biggest part of the problems we have right now, is that everybody wants to kind of act like an island, and we need to be supporting each other. The best way to have a real voice and a real force is by sticking together.
Absolutely. But that said, it's a common question that I get from people from around the world.
Hmm.
I want to be in community, and I think the Bible gives us some really good advice. When he's talking to Abraham, I'm going to make you like the stars of the heavens and the sand on the grains of sand on the beach. Um, if we were all together, the enemy could wipe us out in one fell swoop. But because I'm here, you're there, and we are scattered as the stars of the heaven, that the enemy can't come in. It's like asymmetrical warfare. He can't come and wipe us all out at one time because you're doing this thing, I'm doing that thing. So it has its advantages. Community has its advantages as well. But I think that's one reason that we're not able to just all come together and have this really 1950s old fashioned community that we would love to have, where you just know your neighbor and your neighbor has your back and everybody's in peace and harmony. Of course, it wasn't always that way, but it seemed that way more so in the 1950s than it does today.
Mhm.
Okay, let's see what else here. Can you post where to get the book of prayers? Doris Castro, I got mine on Amazon. It's Dan Duval, Duvall, and it's prayers that shake heaven and earth. So it's pretty easy. If you want, you can email me and I can give you the direct link. He also has at Bride Ministries, but I'm not sure if it's Bride Ministries International or what. He does have the prayers free to the public on his website. So you could look up Bride Ministries Dan Duvall, and then up at the top menu, there's prayers. And he does make those free to the public for people that cannot afford to buy the books. But the books are very handy, and um, you can customize them, like I said. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Um, so John Robertson, yes, we started this broadcast thinking that we are a little bit concerned about Trump, but we're going to keep him in prayer. We're going to hope for the best, and that's kind of we're praying and waiting upon the Lord, and trusting that He's got the best for us. Let's see.
And Celeste, can I say something to that?
Yeah.
I want to add to that. Um, we know that there's only one thing that we can have absolute trust and faith in, and that's our Lord and Savior. That's our Creator. We have to have absolute trust and faith in Him. But a lot of people want to have absolute faith in a human. That's never worked, ever. I mean, Jesus Christ, when he was on earth, was the only one in perfection that we could feel that way about. But trust me, Donald Trump is not Jesus Christ. Uh, he's. I think he's got the right idea. I think he is trying to do the right thing, but there's a lot more to it than just having absolute blind faith. So we just need to trust a little bit and be very, very alert and just keep doing what we know we need to do. And that's get on our knees and pray.
And I think part of America's problem, this is just my take, is that America prior to the election did not get on their knees and repent of the many sins that our country has done. Well, for us personally and our country. And I'm not going to name the multitude of sins, but there's a lot of them. We
Mhm.
did, instead of getting on our hands and knees as a country, what we did is shake our hand and say, we want a king. We want a king. And so we basically elected a king, but now a king, yes, he's got some power, but our job now is he is a human. We don't want, he's not the Messiah. Um, he's not that Donald Trump, President Donald Trump is not Jesus Christ, who is our Savior and Redeemer. So I think that we still, it's kind of like in hopscotch. You can't. It's better to go to the next square than having to jump over a couple squares to get the double one. Um, we really need to address that repentance issue. Yes, we have a president, but we cannot forget our godly heritage and that we need to repent of the sins that we did. And we can't whitewash.
Mhm.
It talks about it, Ezekiel. I don't want your whitewash. I'm going to rip that whitewash off and expose it. So if we fail in our mission to repent for the sins of this nation it will come back on us.
Mhm.
That's just my 2 cents about it.
No, I
So
think you're right. And the other part of that is, again, our country was founded, first of all, it was founded on God's law. It was founded on natural law. And that's the very basis. The whole idea of unalienable rights is founded in the Ten Commandments. So our country, the reason that we've strayed as far as we have is we've forgotten that. So we need to get back on that path. And the only way to do that is have more faith in our Creator and less faith in man.
okay, so I'm going to ask 2 questions, and then we should probably close up. But you're always welcome to come back anytime you have some free time, because we always have great conversations.
We do.
Okay, so this was addressed to me, but I'm going to pass it off to you and see what you say, because you have, like I said, I really appreciate your take on things. Um, do you know what MAGA really stands for? This person says it's a level 5 satanic church for witches and warlocks.
I've seen that. I've seen that information, and I guess when you're talking about acronyms, they can mean any number of different things. Let's hope that that's not what Donald Trump was referring to when he came up with the MAGA thought. But on the other side of that coin, it gives pause for thought. So we better keep an eye on things.
Well, especially when he mentions golden age. You
Yeah,
know, I'm
yeah,
not too thrilled about the whole golden age thing, honestly.
yeah. Me either.
Um, okay, how do we find it? I think it's Bride Ministries, maybe International. You'll just have to type it in. I wish I had it memorized, but I don't. Just if you want, put your question in the comment section when we close out, and then I will get you that link as soon as I'm not on air. It's a little difficult to be looking up on doing internet searches for all of you while I'm on air with Dan. So I just want to thank Dan, um, and I want to thank all of you for your interest. It's been a lively day today, and I'm thankful that you're all here. I pray a blessing over each one of your week this week. And stay tuned next time for the Celestial Report. God bless.
Mhm.